Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. This one being broadcast live June 10th, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know. What do I say after that? We're off to a great start. This is that weekly photo news show where I sit down with my good friends and co-hosts. We'll start with Steve. Steve, we missed you last week. Steve, how are you doing?
I'm great. It's good to be back. Yeah, sorry about that. I kind of ended up bailing out last minute last week. I had a full house. My mother-in-law has been staying with us for about a month. And then my youngest stepdaughter, she lives out in San Diego, California. She came out to surprise us for a week. She ended up staying a little longer, extending her stay, but she just totally surprised us at the door. My son-in-law, we were babysitting the kids, and he said, I got to go do a showing. I'll be right back. And he ended up picking her up at the airport and bringing her here. And there was a knock at the door. I was expecting a FedEx package from Bay Photo, actually. And I went to go get the door, and here's my daughter standing there. So it was awesome. But we had this totally full house. All the kids were over here every single night and stuff. And last Wednesday was one of the last nights before everybody left. And I just wanted to spend time with them and take them out to dinner. So sorry, guys, but it was for a good reason.
It's all right, man.
Totally understandable. Yeah. And David Carr, welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm finally able to relax. I've been installing a ceiling fan in my room right here the whole, all day. It's like you can kind of see it spinning there.
Yeah.
It's going.
Yeah, hey. It works, and it didn't shock me. I mean, it was a major operation. You can see the ladder in the background. I mean, I have this right up until the show. I've been working on this thing. So
now, wiring and everything. Did you run wiring to that spot? Dang,
yeah,
that's impressive.
There was no box in the ceiling. I had to go through the ceiling. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I'm dangerous.
How did you find center? Did you do that on the floor and then take it up and then drill straight?
Pretty
up?
much. But I have some lights that were already put in that I just centered it with those, because they're kind of on a grid. So I didn't want it to be like when you look down, you see something off center. Right. I'm a perfectionist like that. So, but I found center and got it going. So it's working. But literally 15 minutes ago, I was wrapping it up and going to take a shower real quick to get ready for this. So I can relax. Good to be here with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And chat room, thank you so much for joining us. It's always lovely to have you in there. I love seeing you all chatting with each other, letting you know where you're watching from, what the weather's like. That's always fun to kind of share that. Gorgeous day here in Seattle. Absolutely beautiful. We have had kind of a tradition of drinking cocktails in the last couple of weeks, but I'm just going with water today because I'm going for a bike ride with the kid shortly after this. And I'm going to try to go a little bit further to tire him out. So,
There you go.
So that's what
Carr, what do you have?
It's water with it's frozen water with gin and tonic around it. How's
that? Nice, very nice.
Like you, Toby, I went with the thermos, but it's just straight vodka.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is water. I was telling Toby we're going out to dinner after this, and we know the bartender very well. She pours a very, very stiff drink, so no pregame.
Yeah, that's good. Good for you.
We go to dinner tonight.
Very good. Very good. And just a reminder, you can follow both of these guys on their social medias. Links for that is right down below. And David Carr, I know you've been busy with the ceiling fan. Have you had any additional How I Edit videos go out yet?
No, I worked on one last week and worked on it. I'm just not happy with it. And then I've also been tiling somebody's 3 bathrooms for a friend. He's paying me, but so I'm totally moonlighting as a carpenter lately. So I'm just, but nice. In the midst of that, I've done 2 photo shoots in the last week. So I'm doing photography, but I just haven't been able to dive into the YouTube channel as much. But I really, really want to get back at it. I really enjoy it. It's just, Toby, doing videos it's hard. I mean, it's not just the shooting it, it's all the getting it right, and then all the editing it. Even if it's a really simple video, it takes a lot of time. So
Yep. It really does. And I tried something new last night that I haven't really done before, and that was live editing of a couple of different images. So those of you in chat who were up with me last night, welcome back, everybody. That was fun. But what I did was I gave people a handful of images a couple days in advance, allowed them to edit them, send me 1 or 2 of their favorites from that batch. Then I went through and edited the same images, and then we compared. How does mine look? How does yours? And I tried to teach a little bit as I was going along.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's really great.
And of course, I was like, Chris was like, how long do you think this will be? I'm like, oh, I'm going to keep it under an hour. 90 minutes later, I was wrapping up. But it was fun. But it definitely is that struggle of like, here I'm editing. And when you're editing and showing somebody editing, it really feels very different than when you're just kind of poking around and sort of try this out a little bit, try this out a little bit. And so I ran into that a couple of times last night. It was interesting.
Well, that's where I struggle when I do these videos. And it's one reason that I can't get them out every week is because when I go to sit down and do an editing video, I feel like I'm always in this like teaching mode, like, and now we're going to do this and now we're going to, but really what I want to do, and it's funny, I just can never really remember to get in this mode. It's like literally just talk through the process the way I would talk through it in my own head. Mm-hmm. Like, what if I do this? What if I do that? Oh, no, that didn't work. And so sometimes when I'm in this ultra like teaching mode, I realize, well, I don't even know what to call that. I just know that I do it and it works. And so I don't want to sound dumb and be like, just flip this thingy. And then like, I don't want to, sound uneducated, but so it's part of that. I think it's just like anything, the more I do it, the better it'll get. And I think with your live editing, I think that's an awesome idea. And I'm sure it'll come to you, quicker and easier as you do it more.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, well, definitely. The people in chat that were there, they enjoyed. I enjoyed it. I think we will be back to do that in the future. I'd love for the participants to share their own photos to say, hey, I want to see how other people would edit this. I do wonder and worry a little bit, if somebody shares their images out and then all of a sudden someone's selling it on a stock photo site, I don't want any part of that. If people did that with mine, I'd be bummed, which by the way, we have a follow-up on the whole stock photo thing that we talked about last week. So we'll get to that as well.
Okay, good.
So that's something I'd like to do, but I'm not quite sure how to handle that. So I'll be sharing those ideas, especially with Penn members in the future as well. Yeah.
Cool. Good.
Steve, you've been busy with family. Have you had any time or has there been any demand to shoot homes?
Yeah, there has been. So I've done a couple more shoots. I'm getting a couple a week, which is just awesome. I'll take that right now. So I'm pretty happy with it. And like Carr, I've been keeping myself extremely busy around the house and then with family obligations and stuff like that. So I've definitely been filling up my days. My wife encouraged me a long time ago, and I finally ordered them, my shirts. Steve Scurich photography shirts.
Yeah, I noticed that. Very nice.
Just to show off who I am. So that when I show up to do a real estate shoot and give them my card, I'm kind of like wearing the same thing each time. So originally it was going to be polo shirts because I wear a lot of polos and stuff when I'm, doing things with clients. But it's so here. It's like just some t-shirts. So we did custom made shirts. That was kind of exciting. Got to design those and they finally showed up.
It's cool.
Come on, polo shirts don't work in Ohio. Leave that behind in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, you're probably right. Although I do have to tell you that the Arc'teryx captive polo shirt is like my favorite polo shirt. Unfortunately, I can't afford to buy more than just two of them in the closet. So I'm not going to be embroidering those things anytime soon. But that's a little more rugged and outdoorsy and stuff. But yeah, no, I'm more of a t-shirt guy anyway.
Yeah, that t-shirt, it looks great.
It looks nice, man. I got to get some new t-shirts made. I have two shirts that I had made like 3 years ago, and I want to get some new ones. So
I've been going through this company called Custom Ink. I don't know who you use.
That's who I used last time.
I'm not sponsored or anything like that. I've just ordered some custom shirts from them in the past.
Yeah.
They have a brand that I really like, and they're quick turnaround, and they do a great job.
That's great. I need to do it.
Yeah.
Tonight, I'm going to start working on that after I finish this fan.
That is nice. And we've talked about doing some more Penn shirts as well. If you're watching this and you're not a Penn subscriber, you should consider joining. You can find all that information out at footrec.tv/Penn. All right, let's move on a little bit. A couple other, I also did a Monday Minute. That one was on the Range Mask color refining tool, which I think is just so powerful. These are those quicker Lightroom videos. They're a nice antidote to my other Lightroom content, which is, as I said, like last night's was 90 minutes long, and some of those other workshops I did was over an hour. These are generally about 4 minutes, a little bit shorter in length sometimes.
Right.
And it really just tries to hit some of these topics that I think people should be aware of and know about, so that they kind of just become more comfortable with Lightroom. It's a powerful program if you know what it can do. Yeah.
Definitely.
And a reminder, upcoming. So last Thursday, we had a great talk with Mark Loper, aviation photographer. That was part of our Creative Lounge series hosted by Photorec TV, McKay Photography Academy, and the Photo Enthusiast Network. These are these kind of laid back discussions with photographers or artists of all different styles and genres. Mark is an awesome aviation photographer. And it was a really cool chat with him about how he shoots, what he shoots. I know we have some aviation interested individuals in the group. They really found that useful. And that is, of course, up and available for rewatch. Next Thursday, that's June 18th. I can't believe that next Thursday is June 18th. That blows my mind. We have Terrell Lloyd. He is the San Francisco 49ers official photographer and coordinator of all things photography for the team.
Oh, that's great.
So he's also a Canon explorer of light. And so clearly at the top of his game. Very excited to talk to him, not just about sports photography, but kind of the whole pro scene and what he's experienced. And, I'm sure there's going to be mixed in some of the current events because Colin Kaepernick has been a 49ers. Terrell Lloyd is a Black photographer. So we'll touch on that. And I think it's going to be a fascinating discussion. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
That's great.
That'd be great. That's awesome.
That's up on the channel. You can go to photorec.tv/lounge right now and press set reminder so you don't forget. Or if you've got a Google or Alexa device in your house, just ask it to make yourself a little calendar reminder about 30 minutes before so you don't miss this. Because if you watch live, you get to ask questions and have these people, you have access to these people. And it's just been fun to see your questions. A lot of times they're the same ones I'm thinking, and you ask them, and then we get to have this cool discussion. And it's been a lot of fun. So tune in for that. All right. I think that's it. Let's dive into the part of the show that is some of our favorite. And we take your images that you've submitted to us, and we spend a few minutes gazing at them and maybe giving you some tips and tricks in Lightroom, Photoshop, or whatever other programs we might want to take a look at. So let's share my screen. That's what'd you say, Steve?
I said, let's gaze.
Let's gaze.
Do it.
Entire screen. There we go. All right.
Cool.
Am I doing it? You seeing the screen? Yes. Yeah. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. First up, Deb. Deb has somewhere in the Southwest. I'm not sure where. And she submitted to us a raw photo that I suspect is straight out of camera.
Yeah, I was going to ask if this has been manipulated because it looks like it hasn't. Looks like it's straight out of camera.
Yeah, definitely.
Which sounds like I'm criticizing it negatively. I'm not. It looks like it was exposed well for the scene.
Yep. I don't think you are, Steve. And let's just humor me, gentlemen. I know neither of you really love using this or use it too often, but let's hit the auto button and just see where we end up.
Wow.
Big difference.
Auto has been getting better and better in Lightroom. I do find myself from time to time, I'd say about 50% of the time that I'm editing a photo, not when I'm doing my real estate work because I have my own workflow there, but if I'm just editing a photo, getting started, I will click auto just to see what Lightroom thinks should be done. And I'll look at the histogram and find out what's going on. And then I usually undo that and then go and edit it myself. But it kind of just gives me a baseline of where Lightroom thinks all the tones and the shades and the color stuff should be.
Yeah. I was looking, I was noticing it was dark, obviously, straight out of camera, but I actually kind of liked it. And I thought you could probably just give it a mood, like this kind of dark mood where you still see information, but maybe like brighten the center of it up a little bit, or just maybe like a stroke of dodging just across the middle, or I don't know. I was trying to envision what I would do with a dark photo. I really love dark photos when they're right. When everything's kind of got this, like just enough information is there. If it makes sense. And this is one that it could have been shot based on the way it was, looking raw, it could have been shot in low light and just that might have just been the exposure, or maybe it was underexposed. But obviously when you hit auto, it brought it up to what looks more like a maybe not midday, but maybe later in the day, or but still a lot brighter than what was originally there in the raw file. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. There's a lot more sky in that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just realized Andrew or John said you're zoomed in, Toby, or asked. And yes, you're right. I didn't catch that. So we were zoomed in. So there's a lot more up above to that. Let's look at what it looked like real quick again before. Okay. And then so that was out of camera, and here it is now. Carr, I think you're onto something with the keeping some of it darker. And yeah, when we edit, we're always, and this is what I was doing last night, where I'd edit a picture the way I like, and then I'd look at these other people's pictures, and some of them were very different styles than what I like. That doesn't mean they're wrong. And the same thing with, like, keeping this dark. Maybe you wanted a really dark image. That's not wrong. But then when we get it, we edit towards what we think looks best.
Right.
So, I mean, I think people know that, but it's always worth repeating a little bit.
Yeah.
I like that idea, and I try to do a quick sloppy kind of recreation of it, of really darkening or not brightening as much the kind of the sky, and maybe even a little bit of this foreground here. I'm being quick and dirty.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Fast, but it does allow this ridge to feel like it has the light on it. Like, we've got these kind of storm clouds, and from somewhere we have a bit of light coming through that's getting our ridge. But otherwise, this land lies in shadows. Yeah,
that's kind of what I was seeing initially, but who knows? I mean, because I think, there's not like a central focal point, I don't think, in this photo. I don't think there's like a one thing they're trying to show. So it's more of just like a scene, a view. And so having some element that gives it the focal point, sometimes that's just doing something with light, even if you have to manipulate it after the fact. I don't know. But I do like the sky. I think there's a lot to mess with there as far as.
Yeah, once you started showing the file uncropped, I personally think that the story is the brighter clouds. And there's, when you look closely, you start to notice the rain over on the left-hand side. But the really bright clouds, if you zoom all the way out, or go back to the original, and I would do a freeform crop. I would come in from the left side, right to where that rear mountain range sort of starts. And then the top, I'd come down below that darker point. No, I'd go back up, Toby. See where on the far right I'm looking at in the corner, where that kind of goes right up into the corner. There you go.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then the lower part, I would actually come up a bit, because it's really kind of bottom heavy. If the story is going to be about the brighter part, where the clouds are, then I would just kind of take a lot of that dark spot out and you could come in a little bit from the right side, maybe, because the mountain range kind of tapers off. But I think that really capturing those, that's maybe a little too tight. I don't know. I would have to play around with it, but I love the bright clouds. Yeah,
I do too. If they weren't there, like if there wasn't something that stood out with sort of a highlight, I feel like it could get very flat. It could just be sort of a flat image. But I love implying that there was light. There was light coming through. There was the sun was hitting something directly, and
true.
Yeah, I like that too. Deb, I will point out one thing, not knowing what you desired here, but by shooting it very dark at ISO 400, even though that's a fairly low ISO and not very noisy, when we bring it up this much, you really do start to see the noise and you lose a lot of detail. So it looks to me like your shutter speed was a good bit higher than it needed to be at 1/1600th of a second. So just keep an eye out for that in the future. For anybody watching, really want to make sure I shoot a lot of my images slightly underexposed to protect brighter areas, but not much more than I need to. I try not to, so that when they do get brought up, even at ISO 100, noise will start to develop. So you just got to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Thank you, Deb. Kevin's got an image that he and I have been talking a little bit off camera today. We're going to come back and work on that in a minute, but let's plop over to Tanya's couch series image. And this is the first I've seen of this. I've seen some of the other couch ones on your Instagram, Tanya, and very, very interesting.
I think I've seen this one. I don't know if she posted it to Instagram. I know I've seen it, or her Insta story said she was working on it.
Yeah, I think I've seen this one before.
But did she give a title to this by chance?
Living Color. Living Color.
Oh, I see. So when you're in the color, you're alive, and then in the darker areas, it's just skeleton.
Yeah.
Gosh, so that's just so creative.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It is. Oftentimes, Tanya, I don't feel like we have a ton of feedback for you. I think you've done a really nice job with this image. There's obviously photoshopped in here, and there's just no sign of that. I maybe see a little bit of brighter blue around the hand when I really kind of peek. I don't get any of that down here. This looks very, very natural.
Yeah.
being picky, your toe is in the blue. So I don't know. I wasn't going to say it, but I was like, well, yeah, I mean, technically that toe is sticking out. Like it's
that toe is dying a slow death. So.
Yeah. And this balance of this with the yellow rose over here, I think is very cool. And the time you spend on putting all of this together, the physical side of creating these props and putting it all together, I commend you. It's impressive. And you've come out with some really nice results.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything I can see that's, I think on one of the previous images that she did with this couch and I think she had used that table in a shot, and we straightened them, or we had her straighten them up, or told her, she should maybe straighten those up a little bit. They were kind of like a little bit crooked or off center or whatever, but it looks pretty good. I don't know.
The only other thing that I feel struggling with a little bit is balance. It feels a little bit right heavy. As you're reaching right, the table and the rows are on the right, and this left-hand side, almost one and a half, almost a whole half of the left is just a little lacking. It's just got a bony leg in it and part of a couch. So, but it's that I feel like that's being pretty picky as well too.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. I mean, and all the way to, like, it's weird where the skeleton leg kind of meets where, her live leg. It I don't know. It just looks very realistic. She does a great job with Photoshop here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I like the story it tells, and I'm glad I asked about the title, because that really helps get, kind of an idea of what the artist was trying to go for.
Yeah.
A creative title that goes with something like this. Because on first glance, you're going, okay, this is interesting. This is cool. And technically it's done really well. But what is the story here? And hearing the title and seeing the picture, I really have nothing, because her skills are great. And I think they're done very, very well. It's very natural. It's not overdone. It's not under processed. It's really cool.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And there's a couple people in the chat saying, "Hey, Couch Potato, can we nickname?" Because Tanya has done a series. I don't think I'm spoiling anything, Tanya. Has it gone out? I know I've seen a play on that term, Couch Potato. Have I not? If not, tune in. Follow Tanya on Instagram.
And John says couch potato. Little play on words.
Couch potato.
Nice.
I missed that.
It's a good play on words there.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Tanya. Let's go on, Robert. Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And Robert, you surprised me, because Robert's one of those people who last night would submit back an image that is styled very differently from how I typically edit images, usually very colorful, and, processed, noticeably processed, I think, and not necessarily in a bad way. And this is just a very nice, clean repetition. I like this. It's different.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I don't know. I'm not sure I have anything. I like that we have kind of these views almost equal, not perfectly symmetrical, but that's okay because nature is rarely perfectly symmetrical, even if these trees were planted. But we've got these nice leading paths going in both directions with little other additional glimpses of the outside world. I'm going to pull up the contrast a little. I'm just curious what happens.
Yeah.
I like that. I was initially thinking that the contrast needed to come up just a bit because it just gives a little bit more depth, a little bit more three-dimensionality to it. I like the way it was processed. It was a little high key though, and that can tend to flatten out a black and white. I mean, remember, you only have black, whites, and grays to tell your story with a photo like this. So using a little extra contrast on a black and white can add a lot of depth. I love this picture. I love the intentionality that if I picture myself shooting this, it looks like he placed himself exactly here for a reason. I don't think he photoshopped trees in certain places or anything like that. Positioning that middle tree right there that you first see in between a couple of others, leaving more space on the right side because there's more trees kind of going off that way. It just looks very, very intentional and really, really well done. So a little burst in the contrast, and I think just adds a little bit more depth.
Yeah,
very nice.
I absolutely love that. I mean, I see that hanging over the sofa. Like I just think that's a beautiful shot. Simple, there's not. It's just some trees, but it's more than just some trees. Like the way it's arranged. I don't know. I just love it. I think it's very cool.
Very nice. All right, thank you, Robert. Dominoes was the title for that too, which works very nicely as well.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
All right, Pam K sent in this beautiful, I think this is a monarch butterfly. I think I might be zoomed in. It's a little small, Pam. If we go to 1:1, that's the full size image. So Pam, make sure you're trying to send us the largest, or at least like 4,000 pixels on the long edge is what I would suggest, so we can really get in here and look at it. It's really pretty. It's interesting how the green just kind of stops right at the rear of the wing, and then we go off in this direction.
Yeah, I think to that point, it's I would go into Photoshop and I'd actually take out that bright little yellow green, just kind of keep that very smooth transition going. And I might go in and clone some of the purple flowers just to, get rid of that little burnt area back there. It's a small file, so it's really hard to tell. It looks to me, especially when you look at the antenna, to be, I don't know if it's fall off or if it's out of focus.
Its focus is a little bit in front. The focus seems to be sharpest right here, so just an inch or so off from the head.
Yeah,
and then the back wing is lovely and sharp. But yes,
that's on the same plane as where the flowers are. So that's technically speaking, that's the biggest issue with this photograph, is because what you're looking for in sharpness is the head of the butterfly for sure, and where the antenna is and that kind of stuff. I don't know if you could do, your topaz thing and sharpen that up, if that would work, or just kind of go and
maybe
see.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, it could. We're going to jump into topaz in a minute with Kevin, so I don't want to spend time doing it on this one. But Pam, if I get a chance later today, I'll try and then let you know. But one of the techniques you can try in the field is, even with a subject that maybe was being very cooperative and not moving much, is to shoot a burst as you're hand holding. Because when you're working at those short distances, even at f6.3, your depth of field is very shallow. And so you fire a burst as you are moving slightly, just, we are all moving slightly. And you might have one where the head is going to be a little bit more in focus. And so that's my recommendation. But lovely colors and really nice exposure here, Pam. All right. Lori has this beautiful shot.
Wow.
Goodness.
Yeah. Luck Be a Lady is the title.
Gosh.
I know.
And you all are blowing my mind today. Everybody's sending in these great photos. Gosh.
Yeah. I mean, we get down into a little bit of a green right here, but gosh, That's
yeah, I mean, I would take that out, or I would make it purple or something. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it's just introducing another color in there that kind of takes you away from the contrast between the orange and the purple. So I would darken that out, you know, color it out, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
This is just an awesome image.
It really is.
Yeah.
I love this little foot coming off here and the head, and just impressive. You know, Fiona got into macro photography when she was here a couple of weeks ago, just using my phone, and we had this whole group of little ladybugs on these plants, and they all seemed to turn their butts to you every time you tried to take a picture. So I watched over and over again. She'd get in close and they'd just turn around. And so, you know, here you go. You got a nice face shot of a ladybug. So I'm impressed. It didn't show you just the butt.
So Lori just chimed in. She said that she had flipped this one. And, I'm going to be the one to speak up first and say, great call on flipping it for sure. This is, yeah, if it was shot like that, flipping it around was definitely the right call. It looks beautiful like that too, but you know, it allows you to visually travel across the flower and then get to the subject of the story rather than just hitting it right away and then the flower is sort of an afterthought. It provides more of a visually stable place for the ladybug to be perched. And that was a good call, Lori. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gorgeous. I'm wondering if she lit this or because it's, you know, from a photographic standpoint, you've got this black background, which is great, isolating the flower and the ladybug, and but the ladybug's lit so beautifully. You know, or I don't think it's a composite, but it's really just very well executed. No matter what it is, it's well executed.
Yeah, very, very nice.
What were the settings of this shot?
This is with a 90 millimeter at f3.5, 1/50th of a second, ISO 400.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
beautiful.
I'm surprised as well. I guess what's working for you here, Lori, is that the little, I think these are stamen, these little bodies on the flower are in the same focus plane. So even though you're shooting at a fairly narrow depth of field, especially in so tight, it is just perfect that those are in focus along with the ladybug. I think because it just really works there.
Well, and especially shooting a 90 millimeter at 1/50th of a second. I mean, she's obviously very stable, much more stable than I probably would be taking this shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
What camera was this, out of curiosity?
This is the Canon 5D Mark IV, and I think this is the Tamron that does have image stabilization, so that helps a little. But I agree.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
that's really
very impressive.
I don't know that I would have the guts to go with a 50th of a second here, but she definitely pulled it off.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Kevin Walks. What did I just do here? Okay. And we have these here. So Kevin was posted in the Pen group earlier today that he had this shot of the bride that just missed focus just a little bit. And of course, she's very excited about something she just saw. It's a fun expression. Let me fit this on the screen. And he was wondering if Topaz could fix this. As we demonstrated on the show a couple of weeks ago, Topaz does seem to have seems to be good. And then David Carr, you even mentioned you've started using it a little bit more regularly and been pleased with it.
Yes, I actually purchased it when I was editing the wedding photos a couple of weeks ago, and I got to say it saved me on a few shots. You know, it really did.
Nice. So I, was like, oh, Kevin, send me the file. Let's see what we can do with it. And the trick to this, I'll show real quick, and then you saw for a second what it's going to end up like. Spoiler, is pretty dang impressive. So we say edit this in Topaz Sharpen, and it launches in Topaz with a TIFF file. And at first I was like, well, the real trick here is that the background is really in focus. And so even if we fix our subject, because we're starting with a blurry subject, we're never going to get as naturally sharp as the background that is actually sharp. But they do offer a masking tool, which helps. So you can come in here and you can mask your subject. And I'm just going to do this real quick. And this is the area you want the sharpening to be applied. And then you can go focus and sharpen. and it generates a preview, and it takes a moment or 2 or 3. And let me just skip back here and show you the end result. Except now it's going to lock up everything.
Yeah, it uses some power, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's all that AI plotting on how to take over our whole world.
It's what it is, yeah.
So yeah, see, it keeps going back and generating.
Yeah,
this is what it. Go ahead.
It's one of the frustrating things with it, though, is that, you know, if you even just move around a little bit, move the image over, because it's always zooming in on an area, and you move it over a little, and then it's got to re-render every movement.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I'm going to turn the overlay off, and
holy cow, that's crazy.
That's what I said.
I know,
said,
that's pretty
holy
impressive.
cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. All I did was, and you know, I'm not finished here. Obviously, the flower, the bouquet still needs to be worked on. But there are some artifacts there.
Yeah.
But all I did was, and there aren't many options here. I just said focus, manual, sharpness 100. And when I more carefully masked, okay, let's leave this program now. Let's cancel mask and just quit it, because
we're getting into like James Bond territory now with this AI stuff, where you put it up on a big screen and just tell it to enhance.
Enhance. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, Lightroom is really unhappy too. It still thinks it's preparing it for editing, which is because the next step, I think, to really sell this one is, dang impressive, Topaz. You've impressed me again. I am probably going to buy this software. But you do have some cleanup work to do. A couple of things I suggest, Kevin. One is, I bet you have an in-focus bouquet from another shot that would be pretty easy to paste on top. Or I can't remember how well it did here. If it ever comes back, what's happening? Do you still want to quit? Yes, I don't need. There we go. Okay, and here it is when I masked better. I mean, look at. Hold on. There we go. Look at this.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And again, yes, some artifacts. So now, next step, though, I think, to really sell this, go to Photoshop. And we've shown this before, so I'm going to do this really quickly. But I use this sometimes, just to kind of further highlight my subject. And I want to talk about Nik a little bit too in a minute, but we'll get there. Okay, so let's do select subject. It's going to be probably pretty smart in selecting our bride and her bouquet. Yep. It missed her hair, so I'm going to hit Q to get into the quick mask, and I want to find my brush. My brush goes away when I put it on the page. Okay, so we'll just be sloppy here and just quickly get a little more of the hair. Okay, now invert that selection and filter. I blur gallery, and then you can do the iris or the field blur. I think look more like out of focus backgrounding, and then just kind of soften the background so that she stands out a little bit more from it. I'm just going to choose their default values and say okay. But there we go. I'm not sure how big you could print this before you'd start to see some funniness, but I think absolutely perfectly acceptable for social media sharing. And I think small prints with some additional cleanup would be fine. Would just be fine.
It's pretty impressive.
That's very impressive. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's remind ourselves let's just close this and say, yes, we do want to save and go back to our original. So again, we caution, I have said in the last year or two that I'm a lot more heavy-handed with the delete button and deleting images that are crappy images. And I just want to echo my caution in that just because you misfocus doesn't mean that there won't be some amazing James Bond-like program, in Steve's words. We're there, and it's just only going to get better.
It's only going to get better. That's right.
So the original, there's the original. There's with some editing.
Just amazing.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay, that's all the pictures, Kevin. We'll get to your other waterfall picture in next show. That looked like a nice photo, but I want to make sure we have time to cover a couple of other things. And one, let's just dive in at why I'm sharing my screen. I attended a Nik presentation that they gave this morning. We talked, David, you and I talked about it on the show last week.
Right.
Nik version 3 is out. The big updates are the fact that you now have this floating panel that can remain in Photoshop even when you close Photoshop and reopen it. So it's easier access to. And you have, I didn't realize this, but you can even go into the settings and say, when I choose one of my favorites from this Nik. So let's say I wanted to go, adjust color and tonality of this one. Oh, that was wrong. Sorry, I'm doing a bad job here. When you have favorites listed in that Nik panel, you can actually set up the preferences so that it doesn't even go into Nik. It just applies them in Photoshop.
Wow.
So for instance, I chose a bad one without any. I don't have any favorites right now because Nik 3 is new to me and it didn't bring over any of my favorites from Nik 2. But for instance, if I said last edit, watch, it won't open. Down here in the bottom left corner, you see that? It's just showing me that it's making those changes to this image without even going into Nik. So that's pretty cool. So that's one of the big differences. The other big difference is the fact that going from Lightroom to Nik, using TIFF files, you can go back into Nik and make adjustments to whatever you did on that file. You're not redoing on top of adjustments from before. You actually have, let's say you put down control points. You can go back in and adjust those control points further. But of course, the files do get very large. Right now, it's a one-time thing. Like you go in, you make some changes, you go back out, and you've made some Lightroom changes, and then you have to decide which path you want to go down. Do you want to go down the Lightroom path of redoing edits or the Nik redoing edits? But the idea is pretty cool. And then, of course, the perspective effects, which, Steve, I want to get your opinion on it at some point here, because it's like Lightroom's guided transform tool, but better. So I'd be curious to, I don't want to, okay.
So I was debating whether or not to upgrade, and I got the offer. It's like 30% discount. I think it's $59 for me to upgrade. And I was kind of waiting to see what your thoughts were on it. I didn't know the perspective ad now that's been put in there, because I use Nik a lot for noise reduction, and I use silver effects. So those are really the only two things that I use Nik for, but I use it a lot if I'm doing a black and white and I'm doing noise reduction. But I would definitely be interested in checking out that perspective.
That's all. Some of the shots, they showed interior shots with fixes that just seem to be a little bit better than Lightroom.
Well, see, I would love to have more guided transform lines that I could use. I don't understand why Adobe limits you to 4. It doesn't make any sense to me. It never has. Usually that's all I need. And a lot of times you don't need more than that, but I take a lot on an angle. So there aren't just very many exact lines. I need to kind of play around with some, and I would like to have more functionality.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just looking real quick in here. I don't think you have more than 4 still. You have auto, you have 2 vertical, 2 horizontal, and then you move those as you need them. So it automatically puts them down. Yeah. This one is a full box, but you're still just 4.
Oh, well, that's actually really good for, when I'm centering something, or you got a bed or a window you need to center up. I use a square quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So they're there. The big one is cool. And, we joked off camera last week before, you weren't available for the show, but the volume deformation, we worked on David McKay, and, it was limited in how it could fix Mr. Gnome Mr. Giant Gnome, but it did. And again, in some examples, it's really pretty impressive.
It's funny. You did text me that you're going to work on that photo, and that's a good old classic. I love that one.
Yeah. All right. So Nik looks like it's nice. If you don't need the non-destructive editing and you don't need the perspective effects, I don't think there's a huge reason to upgrade to this third version. We had that question in our community group the other day. But if you like this effects, you like the ability to more easily get in and out of it in both Lightroom and Photoshop, then I think it might be worth, especially if you take advantage of that discount on the upgrade price as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move into a little bits of news. We've got some news. We want to start with, first off, a recall. Tamron 70-180 f2.8. This is that newish lens that came out for the Sony system. Tamron's been really kind of killing it, producing these lightweight, small, slightly shortened range lenses for the Sony system. But interestingly enough, I think that there has been an issue with almost every single one that they've released. That's not to say I'm not recommending them, but I don't think I'm going to be consistently recommending people buy them the moment they come out.
Sure.
Because the other big issue I've seen, and they have since fixed this with a firmware update, is the 17-28 on my Sony, and I know others as well, would just not always consistently focus. It would just sometimes not focus, which a landscape photographer, that's most of what I was using it for, not a huge deal, a little annoying. But in other situations, wedding photographer or any kind of faster paced environment, that's a real huge problem.
Yes.
That's a problem any way you slice it. If you're missing focus or you're inconsistent, then
yeah, especially if you don't even notice, because it is kind of subtle in its non-focusing. And in fact, you're using a wide angle. It's tricky to really tell. Everything looks in focus, and then you're like, oh, it wasn't. So watch out for that.
Just put it in Topaz. You're good.
That's right.
We don't even have to focus anymore.
just change on that thing, man. You'll be fine. Give it to Q. He'll fix it.
Yeah, it's funny because like that when I was in music, that's how it got to be, because everything was recorded on computers and AI kind of stuff was, you could fix anything. So like you could play it sloppy and they'd be like, no, it's fine. We'll fix it. And I'm like, well, that's pointless. Like, I don't feel like a musician if I play it sloppy and you're just going to fix it, but they could. But I think obviously you always want to nail focus as much as you can, and only use AI as a crutch.
Yeah. I agree. So there's a way on the show notes, which are linked right down below, if you've already bought this lens, which I think looks like a great lens if you get it fixed. The recall issue, has to do with the floating element inside not being properly aligned for everybody. It doesn't affect all of the lenses that they've released in the last a month or two since it's been out, but there's serial numbers to check. So check those, and they'll fix it for you, or they'll send you a new one, they said. So that's nice. Hey, 5D Mark IV is now discounted to $2,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I know it's a camera that's been out for a number of years, but in some ways, to me, that's one of Canon's biggest strengths in their prosumer cameras is they do last years, and they're workhorses. And every single time I turn mine on, it's immediately on. It always works. The battery holds a ton of shots.
Yeah.
Taking it all over the world through every terrain imaginable. And it's like a Timex that takes a licking and keeps on ticking. To get that camera for $19.99 is just an awesome deal, even today.
Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing, Steve. And, when we were in Alaska last summer, almost exactly a year, oh no, it was August, but last year, there was times we were shooting puffins, and here I am with my Sony A7R III. It's supposed to have really good focus, and I'm working hard and just feeling like I'm missing a lot of these shots. And I look over and you have some freaking tack sharp puffin flying shot with the 5D Mark IV, which is older and, it's not supposed to be as good.
I love the camera. I have since the day I bought it. It was an upgrade from the Mark III, which was a much better upgrade than I thought it was at the time. And I still enjoy it. Well, I posted that owl picture a couple of days ago. That was using 400 in my backyard, and I looked at those files. I'm like, these are awesome.
Yeah. So I can see that it was. It has been out for a while, released in the fall of 2017. We had a drop, just a little less than a year later, but pretty small drop. And about every year-ish, we have a drop of maybe $100 to $200, or maybe I should say 200 to 400. But look at this drop, except for that kind of around Black Friday or holiday sales. It's, that was a brief period of time. It is now back down to that. People have asked, do I think it's going to stay? I never know for sure. I'm wrong so often that I really always hesitate to really say, but I do think it's going to stick around at this price for a while.
I would imagine. I mean, it's not even that it's long in the tooth, and I'm not a Canon shooter, but I know that that's still very synonymous with like it's a very up-to-date camera in a lot of ways. I mean, it's not like you look at it as old technology. But I would imagine as they bring out the mirrorless stuff, the R5 and all that, it's gonna, I think a lot of manufacturers that are still making DSLRs are, they know that the future is the mirrorless, and so it's not that these are bad cameras. They're just, they're starting to lose some of their value because people are moving to the mirrorless stuff, and will continue to move to it.
Yeah, I think if they, when you drop your price around Christmas time and Thanksgiving, Black Friday and stuff, people expect that, and so they jump on those deals. Here we are, it's early June, and to drop it like that, they'll sell a bunch of them at that price, and if they bring it back up, they won't sell anything.
That's right.
So it would be very smart to just leave it at $19.99 and just continue to get as many sales as possible out of that aged, camera body. And I would highly recommend that to somebody that wants a full frame and doesn't mind, the bulk of a DSLR. It's just an awesome camera. So hopefully that price is just here to stay. I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. We mentioned, or chat has mentioned the mirrorless. The R5 and R6 are supposed to be announced July 2nd, which we're not that far off from, and it'll be really interesting to see how that camera. A lot of people talking about it. They've really been hyping the video features, and I feel like that makes photographers feel a little left out. But I'm really interested to see how that AF system is. How does it compare against the 5D Mark IV? And still wondering the price. But I think we settle on like 3,900 roughly.
Yeah, wasn't there something? There were some rumors that came out. First, there were rumors that it was going to be like 6,700 or something crazy, and then those were proved to be false. And then I thought there were some rumors that it was actually going to be below expectation in terms of price. And I can't remember what that number was. I just read it maybe a week ago, and it was like, wow, 8K full frame, 8K at I don't know, $39.99 or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think someone said it will be under 4, and so that does make me think. And they weren't just a random commenter. They had some credibility with their name. And I think that sounds realistic to me. Honestly, for the specs we know so far, it sounds a little on the low side. So if they really can hit 3,900 and really do provide the specs that have been floating around, that most have been confirmed. So yes, unless we figure out what the catches are, this is impressive. So yeah.
Definitely.
Very cool. All right. Stocksy. So last week I mentioned, Steve, you remember, years ago when we did the show, I did my little, what have I earned on Shutterstock this year?
2 years and you could finally go to a movie and get a.
That's right. That's right. My lifetime earnings, as I shared last week, are $1,000, but that's 4 years of selling images. And it's primarily just my one owl image. And Shutterstock made the news because they're making a change to their payouts, and it's going to pretty much negatively affect most of the contributors. And so I was like, well, let me try Stocksy. And we went and took a look at Stocksy. I had earlier in the morning shared that I applied. And I was like, let me go see what the status of my application is. Let me go find my welcome letter. I'm sure they've sent it by now. No, they rejected me. They said no.
Why?
So the actual email said basically something like, your content doesn't fit our needs, something like that. And I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking. These are fantastic images, and these are very different from the images I submitted. To get an idea of what I submitted, you go to tobiasgelson.com. I think that I submitted my favorite ones.
Are they more interested in like current events or something? Because I mean, when you looked at that homepage there, that was all.
Yeah, well, I think right now they very much are, and they shared something. We talked a little bit about this last week of, you know, being socially conscious and aware and supporting this movement,
Right.
And so they have these pictures out front. But let's search for something like, well, let's search for lion and see what we get.
Oh, okay. So they've got a bit of everything. I'm surprised any of your stuff was.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, look at that. Really, we need lion mating. Oh, look at the kitty cat. That's cute. So
the sad thing is that lion mating is probably one of their most downloaded images.
It probably is. It's the subject of many memes.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of text above and below that.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of fantastic images here. Well, that one's not even in focus. Oh, it's a video. Okay, sorry. So one thing I could think is what happens to a lot of these places is early on, they are pretty welcoming of many images. And then as they really start to get flooded with images, and some are maybe not quite as high a quality as others, they start to get a little bit more selective. And they very well could have looked at my portfolio and said, we already have cheetah pictures. We already have a scenic shot of the Tetons and some of these others. I submitted most of these more landscapey ones. And so, okay. I mean, yeah, it stings a little, sure, but I will survive.
Those are awesome images, Toby.
Yeah, they really are.
Thank you. I mean, and that's I'm okay, and I think, you know, they're being honest in that they have enough of those kind of images. They don't need more. That's fine.
Well, let me ask you this though, because I don't think we even talked about Unsplash last week, did we?
And I think it might have been mentioned, but not really talked about.
Well, because I mean, that's
how do they pay?
No, they're free.
Aha.
And they ask that you give credit to the photographer, but there's some really fantastic images on there of just about anything you would want to see. And
so why would anybody be using these other sites?
Why would somebody pay? And I'm not going to lie, I've used images from Unsplash before.
Wait, I could just go on to Unsplash and I could use any of these images.
And you can literally go and wow. That first lion, you can click on it and click download, and it'll say, see it up there, download, and ask you what size, and then it'll ask you to give permission or to give credit, but you don't have to give credit. So,
and are you even allowed to use it in commercial? Like, could Hyundai? Well,
I don't know for sure on that, to be honest. So maybe there's got to be some sort of stipulation. But so Zach Arias, a photographer, a friend of mine, he did a whole rant about this a couple of years ago. It was Unsplash. There's another, I can't remember what the other one was called, but he's like, "What is this?" Because he was unaware of it. But is it really free? Yes. So I think I gave up on even considering submitting stock images when I saw this, but which is, if people are still willing to pay for stock images, by all means, like, might as well submit them. But it felt almost futile.
Worldwide copyright license to download, copy, modify, distribute, perform, and use photos for free, including commercial purposes, without permission from or obtaining the photographer or Unsplash.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy.
I don't know if I want to support that platform necessarily.
I know.
Did you search to see if somebody was uploading your images on their car?
Well, what'd you say?
Did you search to see if anybody had uploaded your images up there and gave?
No, but you know what? When I found out about this, it was quite a few years ago, and I think I submitted 3 images because at the time I wasn't sure. I wasn't even sure what I was doing. I was like, "Oh, cool! I'll throw some images in there," and there was nothing like that fantastic, But yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't like it, But then again, it's like, going back to the whole music thing. I know that when downloading songs became a thing, and then became a problem with Napster and all that, and the artists were getting upset and the labels were getting upset, my cynical side just said, "Yeah, get upset all you want. This is how it's going to be. Like, people are just going to trade and share, and and things like media of any type has just been cheapened in its value. And it's unfortunate, but now that doesn't mean you can't still make a living or make great images and do great things with them, but you just have to get that much more creative about how you market them and where you distribute them. And because there is definitely no shortage of great images in the world. I mean, there are so many amazing photographs,
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Carrie brings up a good point. She has asked her team to not work with Unsplash because oftentimes the subjects haven't necessarily signed release forms. So
that makes sense.
you could be using these images and not the photographer, but the subjects say, "Hey, I never signed a release for you to use to advertise for such and such."
Yeah.
So that is a downside. And I mean, the only other thing that I can say as a downside to this is you probably do have to do a little bit more digging, and the quality of work is not as high as if you went directly to Shutterstock or Adobe Stock.
And I have, like I said, I have used, I think twice I've downloaded what was mainly a texture that I wanted to put as a graphic behind something I was doing in Photoshop. And so I wasn't taking the whole vivid image and like using it, but still, I mean, I'm not trying to diminish the fact that I used it, but since using it, I'm just like, I just don't know if I don't feel right about that, even if it's out there, even if me so somewhat boycotting it isn't going to make a difference. I don't want to associate with things that it's just cheapening the whole thing.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Other news. Photo EXIF stats graphed. I saw this today in my feed. There is an app now that you can buy, and I spent the money for you folks just so to share it with you all. Now, this is an app that will scan your photos folders and tell you your most commonly used focal length, aperture, shutter speed, all of this different stuff. It is Mac only, and it costs $2.99. So, I shelled out the big bucks for you all. Let me share for a moment what this looks like. I ran it through. Well, first I pointed at my whole photos folder, and after an hour and a half, it was 10% done. So I stopped that and just pointed it at 2020. And once you've scanned, you then have this drop down where you can sort by ISO, or graph, I should say, by ISO or aperture or exposure time. Let's do exposure time. I haven't looked at that yet. And now it shows you from your most, funny enough, because 2020 has been a fairly quiet year so far for me, a night time lapse is really dominating with over 240 images at 30 seconds. But then my next most popular shutter speed is 1/640. And exposure time might not be so useful as something like focal length, where you can go in and say, what focal lengths am I shooting at, to try to figure out whether or not you should experiment with something a little bit higher than that range or lower than that range, or get a prime that fits that range. And again, in my case, a time lapse using the new Sony 20mm is dominating this graph. But then after that, you can see I really like 400 on the 100 to 400. So there's some useful information in here, but I bring this up, and also in the show notes, I posted a link to Jeffrey Field's plugin. He's that guy with a million different Lightroom plugins. He's got one that is just donationware, so you can try it out. It integrates with Lightroom and will scan your catalog and then kind of report back very similar information, almost identical, really, and allows you to do the same thing. And of course, you can just pay him $1, and it works on PC or Mac as well. So, but I thought that was cool. If you're kind of curious at poking that around and seeing.
Yeah. Nerd alert.
I know you love the spreadsheets. I know you love the spreadsheets and the graphs.
To be honest, I could care less what my most frequent focal length or shutter speed is. I don't know. Maybe there is a use that I'm not thinking of, but that's not going to be in my bag of tricks anytime soon.
It's fine. You're just a big old data poo-pooer. That's totally okay. That's totally all right.
Well, I do find it interesting. I mean, personally, I don't ever think about like wanting to find that information, but I've told people when I shoot with my 70 to 200 lens, especially for like portraiture and weddings and stuff, I just always love the images from that lens. It just always delivers. And yet when I look at my information, I'm like, I don't feel like I shoot with that lens nearly enough for the amount of like applause that I give it. And so maybe it's a reminder to shoot with that more, because it does seem to deliver great results. So, but I don't know. It'd be interesting to kind of just see what my habits are when it comes to lenses. And
yeah, I think it can be informative to think about, what lenses you're using and what lenses you should think about maybe upgrading or using more of. I'd be curious, with that 70-200, do you find yourself more at the 70 range or 200 range or throughout?
Well, that's a good question too. It's like, yeah, I think it's probably closer to the 200, just like you with the 100 to 400. I think we're always trying to get in closer to things. So
yeah, oftentimes. Yeah.
Now, I do have to admit, I'm a bit of an anomaly because I have a Toby in my life. So I don't really have to worry about this stuff because I can just say, Toby, what do I usually shoot with? And he'll just tell me. So, having said that, I did love the yin to my yang that you have there, Toby. So
well, that's okay, Steve. You helped me with MacBook questions, and they let me bounce those off you.
Okay,
I still,
I haven't done anything yet.
No. Again, if it sits here, it doesn't crash. If I take it anywhere else in the house, if I do anything with it, it crashes frequently. It's so strange. And it's not the angle that the monitor is at or anything like that, because I've played with that. But the show is about me because it's my channel and I always talk about me because I'm so important. But I was just for fun looking at, like, what if I got a used 13-inch MacBook from several years ago that still had an SD card slot and, was about as powerful as this. Holy crap, they're still $1,200.
Yeah, they hold their value. They hold their value.
So, and also I've decided, I am almost talking about this every week, but I'm not going to super stress. I'm going to decide on one computer or the other. And if I decide on something slightly underpowered and it doesn't last me 5-6 years like this one does, okay, I'll survive. And I'll have to get another computer down the road. So I'm not going to be crazy stressed about it. But yeah, I still haven't decided what to do. So
it's a tough decision. It's a tough one.
It is, yeah. Real quick, I want to just share this. I mentioned that I've upgraded the show, and the way I stream is with a little USB stick that accepts HDMI input from my camera. And it feels like almost every week we've been talking about different camera manufacturers releasing something that allows you to plug your camera in, like the Canon beta software is now available on Mac and Windows. It's a little finicky, but it works without HDMI stuff. But this, of course, works with any camera or anything that puts out HDMI. You can bring it into the computer. And I'm using this little CamLink device that, I don't know, 6 months ago I bought for $99. When the pandemic hit, and everybody was scrambling for ways to have the best quality Zoom calls. That price now is well over $200 for that device. But I was watching with my son last night. He flipped on YouTube, and this guy had 50 best tech for June, under $50 tech in June. And it was this little thingamabob. It only does 1080. Oh, I am still sharing my screen. It only does 1080p, whereas the CamLink will do up to 4K, but it's $45. So I ordered one because, one, it'd be cool to have an alternate camera angle. I know you all miss this side of my face, and I don't turn like this often enough. But no, I want to back up because that could fail. That could drop it or something. And $45, I just kind of want to try it out and talk about it a little bit. Sure. But that'll be a foolproof way to do that. And just one other option, Lumix has software now that if you have one of the more popular Panasonic Lumix cameras on Windows, you can use that as a webcam as well.
That's cool.
And the very last story that I want to talk about before we get into creative blocks and spending a few moments there is, we've had discussions about what color space you should be editing and working in, right? sRGB, Adobe RGB. And we've seen the negative consequences of somebody posting maybe an Adobe RGB color space to certain browsers. And then we look at it and we're like, oh, that picture looks rough. And it's because the color space shift. That's annoying. But apparently Android phones, certain ones running certain versions of Android, can actually crash if you set the wallpaper to a color space outside sRGB. Isn't that goofy stuff?
That's weird.
So this article, I just saw this. It caught my eye because it does apply to me. Apparently, if I set, where's the picture? This wallpaper as my phone wallpaper, it will cause the phone to crash. And when it comes back up, it'll probably crash again fast enough that I won't even be able to change the wallpaper. And the only way that some people have been able to fix this is to do a hard reset on their phones.
Gosh.
Weird.
So weird stuff, but it has to do with the fact there's this, if you want to read about it, but it's how the system UI handles the sRGB images and its RGB values, and having one outside of sRGB throws those values out, null pointers, boom, done.
Ugh.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
No thanks.
No, it's a bummer. I still like my Android though. All right, let's go back to this. Okay. So I'll be very honest with you all. When I was putting together this show, I was like, I don't know what I want to talk about as in the last couple of months, we've had kind of a central issue that we've spent a few minutes discussing on each show. And I think it's been great. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, I have a creative block about this. Oh, we could talk a little bit about creative blocks. So that's how I came up with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there's three answers. And then, gentlemen, I'll ask you if you have anything to kind of add in on this, because we didn't really talk about this before the show. So I don't want to put you on the spot and be like, solve my creative blockage right now, please.
Yeah, I got a creative block thinking about what my creative block is.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like we've discussed it at some point, in the last 2 years. I feel like this has come up a bit as a topic. And for me, well, I think let's take somebody like Tanya, who we see as creating content very often that is very creative. I can see creative blocks being very difficult and hard for somebody like Tanya. Like, okay, you got this couch, you've done 10 different shots with it. Now what? You're out of ideas. Whereas for us, for us, when we travel in landscape photography, I think it's harder to get into a creative block. You could get into a rut, but a block wise, because you just go to someplace pretty and you're like, okay, I'm just going to make some pictures here with what's in front of me. So I don't necessarily experience the creative block so much as feeling like I get into ruts where I just don't see my work progressing like I would like from time to time. Or I am someplace pretty. I know in front of me is beautiful images, but I don't feel like I'm able to make those or translate them nice into photographs I'm proud of. Which, I think it is similar to what we're talking about, but not necessarily the same thing.
Right.
But three answers to kind of general creative blocks that I think help is, one, really change up what you're doing. So let's say you are a landscape photographer and you are suffering from creative block. You've gone places, it's just not working for you. Become a portrait photographer for a while. I mean, really kind of do something well outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, it's good
to see what happens. Not necessarily to change your profession or your life, but to stretch your brain a little bit and give it a break from what you've been doing again and again and again and again. So that's one thing. And another kind of even more simple than that is change up your lenses. So, Steve poo-pooed my nice little chart, but look at that list and say, look, man, I don't have any lenses that I'm shooting with, or I haven't spent any time in the focal lengths down in the super wide region. Let me get or throw on or borrow some super wide lens and spend the next week or 2 weeks out shooting with only that lens. Again, it's the same idea. You're just trying to kind of change your brain thinking about how you're approaching these photographs, because a wide angle lens is going to be very different, or of course the other end, a telephoto lens. Yeah. And the third option that I have, I don't think it's a great answer for some of you who, are trying to continually produce work, but is to give yourself a break. I don't think that there are very many incredible artists that continue to produce consistently for years and years and years. There are times where I think it's important for you to put that down, maybe spend a week cooking. I've certainly spent way more time in the kitchen the last couple of weeks with the kids here, more than I have other times. But, you know, do something very different for a period of time, again, to just kind of rewire, or at the very least rest the portions of your brain that have been designated or focused on photography.
Yeah, it's good.
That's what I got.
I like it. I think it's good. I mean, because I've said I've been in a creative rut or had a creative block in the past, and then I'm like, well, what am I creating? I mean, I am sort of reacting to what's there, what I'm hired to react to, and then just getting the editing. Maybe I can find ways to get better at my editing. Maybe I can, that's one thing you can do, is say, I want to learn one new thing a week in Photoshop, and like just practice it every week. Just, I want to learn what this does, and then I want to learn what that does, and just learning those, setting up little challenges for yourself. Another thing you can do is a personal project, and just say, I want to shoot everything for the next month. I want to shoot like 20 photos in the next month, and all of them just crop to a square. I just want to see what I can do with that, or something like that. Just something where you're not typically doing it. Or I just want to only shoot black and white. I'm actually going to put my camera in black and white to where it shoots them that way, or something. Just anything that like throws you off of your normal go-to mode of doing this can be good. But I know for me, because I've dabbled in the video stuff, and I've done these how I edit videos, and I've done a couple YouTube videos of just reviews and stuff, but it's definitely not like this ongoing thing. That's where I get the creative rut sometimes, is to go, I feel like I want to have this brand of David Carr photography that is my photography first and foremost, but then I want to have this image out there and try to help people get better at their photography. And I want to put these videos out. And sometimes I just sit there and go, of what? Like, what am I going to go do? Like, I could go do something right now, but of what, and which is a kind of a lame excuse not to get out there and try something. But sometimes we're just not as inspired as we want to be.
Yeah, Toby, I think those three things that you laid out were pretty comprehensive, and they spoke to me at different seasons and stages of my creative life. And years ago, I got just really tired of shooting homes. There's no emotional connection there. You're just kind of helping a home sell, and that's exciting. But after you shoot a bunch of homes, it's like, okay, I'm shooting homes. And so I started traveling a lot more. You remember this, when I moved to Tennessee, I no longer have my business in California. And so I traveled constantly. And I started to miss shooting homes. And now I'm shooting homes again. And I'm doing it from a whole different perspective, because I took a break for a while. I was, very fortunate to be able to do that. But while we were on the road, while we were traveling, one of the things I really enjoyed, you spoke to this earlier, was just going places and just taking my prime lens. When I bought the medium format camera, I only had one lens to begin with. And I really enjoyed forcing myself to learn how to creatively make a photograph using that one lens. If I had to stitch it together as a pano, vertical, horizontal, if I had to, step back, get forward, whatever, it just got me, it challenged me. I like to challenge myself. Sometimes I like to pick up my old film cameras and just go out and just shoot, because that helps me look at things just so differently, and the way you shoot is totally different. So and then I have a lot of hobbies outside of photography, and sometimes that works against me, because I feel like I need to be spending more time being creative with my photography. It's my business and everything else, but there's a lot of other things that I'm into. And so sometimes when I'm in a rut, I do take a break, and sometimes it's probably longer than it should be, because I've gotten myself creatively working on landscape, or a project around the house, or, making cocktails, or barbecuing, or, whatever, kids, and all these other things that I enjoy doing. And sometimes, like, man, I haven't picked up my camera in like 2.5 or 3 weeks. I really need to get back to that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that really helps anybody out, but I've definitely been feeling a rut. I'm enjoying shooting homes, and when I'm not shooting homes, I'm just kind of like, please, 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 will that phone ring? So I have a home to shoot, and I have something to work on. But one of the other things that I've gone to during this time is I've started looking at a lot of my old RAW files, because my editing style is so different today than it was back in 2015, 16 or even 17. And so I'll go back to my Chicago days or some of my first tours, and I'll just reset a photograph, or I'll find a new one that I've held on to, and I'll work out an edit on it that is totally different than what I was able to do back then. So that's always why we encourage people to shoot raw and then hold on to some of those pictures, because your editing styles will change. And for me, a huge amount of my photography creativity comes out of sitting at the computer and editing. Getting the shot is just getting the ingredients.
Right.
I like, making the meal at my screen.
Absolutely. I think you're right. That's been a huge growth point for me, especially since I started traveling like you guys do with, the McKay photography tours. And Steve, you told me the very first trip that I did, because I was on that trip with you, and you said your photography, you're going to watch it just improve so much just by doing this. And you were so right, because I just, not only was I getting in front of amazing places, which that's always helpful, but just being around an environment of people who know more than I do about editing, and that sense of critique, that's a huge way you can grow. Maybe right now you're not going to create so much, but maybe you can grow in your skill and your knowledge. And so maybe part of that is submitting images like you do here to Mishmash and to Pen and to any kind of form like that, where you're like, hey, tell me what you think, and be honest. And because I want to hone this in and see what I can do to make it better, or maybe not shoot this kind of photo anymore because maybe it doesn't work. And
and I said, and I just want to highlight Brian's comment, because another friend of mine posted this a while back when it was just the pandemic going on, and there's just a lot going on right now, and I think that is weighing heavy on many people, and it's okay, to have a break, to have your camera down for a period of time, and to focus on other things. So I don't. I've definitely been doing that, not beating myself up too much over maybe not feeling as productive. There's another woman in this neighborhood who's a fantastic photographer. I just happened to meet her a couple of weeks ago, and we've been just talking a little bit, and she's going out almost every morning and shooting these gorgeous sunrise shots. And I'm kind of like, gosh, I'm feeling a little guilty that I'm not doing that. But, there's a lot going on, and I'm doing some other things. So I'm okay.
One piece of advice that I will dish out, David Carr, I know we've exchanged some messages about this in recent days, but over the last couple of weeks, and this is no silver bullet, I worry a lot. I have a lot of anxiety. I have a lot of my own things that go on that I just don't. I'm happy to discuss them with people, but I usually don't advertise it too much. But I've really reduced my social media, just looking at it, posting any of that stuff. Like, I'm on Facebook maybe once, twice a day now, couple likes on some of the pictures as I scroll through, and then I'm off. I start to see the garbage that's on there, and I'm like, okay, I feel it welling up again. It's just either worried, or I'm frustrated, or I'm disappointed, or whatever, and I shut that down. I've been spending a little bit more time there, but even that, just getting away from staring at my phone and social media and the news in general. I want to know what's going on in the world, but I don't need to hear every one of my contacts' opinions on everything. And
I agree. Yeah.
Oh God, it's gotten so far out of hand, and that's been awesome over the last few days for me.
Good. Yeah, it definitely will bring you down, and just, this has been a very heavy year, obviously, in so many ways. And so I think we all have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and say, like, okay, yeah, I might not be on level 10 productivity right now, but who really is? I mean, very few people. And this kind of goes back to a conversation that we had early on during this pandemic, but what we're all experiencing still, and not just with the pandemic, but with everything else that's going on right now, is like a national sense of trauma. It's almost like a traumatic thing that we're all dealing with on multiple levels now. And it's real. That's not just some sort of light, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but that's real. It's something we all feel. We carry a weight, and some of that's good. We need to carry that weight, and we need to carry it for other people. But we also need to recognize that, like, we're only human. We have 24 hours in a day. and 8 of which were supposed to be sleeping. And if you're like me, Steve, sounds like you worry as well. Sometimes at 3 a.m. I'm not sleeping. I'm awake with anxiety. But so all of that's playing into like this whole creative thing we're talking about. And for you guys and for myself, we haven't been able to get on any tours and do any of these trips, which is really inspiring. And so, this too will pass, and I think we will get to better places. But we have to endure.
Your wife Jennifer, actually, she was kind of the catapult that got me to really just get off of social media for a while. She put a really great post up about how I tune into social media and the news, and I see this and I see that, and the world's coming to an end, and everything's wrong, and there's a lot of worry, and legitimately so. But she said, when I go out into the world and talk to people face to face, I'm obviously paraphrasing, I just don't see it like that. Like, people are still friendly and nice. And Toby, I remember when we were first getting Penn off the ground, we would have discussions as a leadership group about how, gosh, when we get together live, or we even talk on the phone and we just bounce ideas off of each other, we're just firing on all cylinders. We get so much done. But when you start to mix in just texts and group me's and stuff into our daily lives, and then trying to decipher a tone from somebody or whatever, it becomes so difficult. It's that face-to-face human interaction. It's still there, and it's probably, I would say, more meaningful than ever right now.
I agree.
Yeah. I'll say we're in for a rough couple of months ahead of us as we move towards this election and social media. It's not going to be pretty. It's not.
No, it's not.
After the election, no matter who wins.
That's true. That's just not going to end there.
It's just,
Yeah.
So do what you can. You have a responsibility. I always say you have a responsibility to everybody else or other people. You have responsibilities to your spouse and your kids, but you have a responsibility for yourself alone.
Yeah, it's true.
So don't get those mixed up. Everybody seems to run around trying to tell people what they're supposed to be doing. I have a responsibility to you, not for you. For you, it involves me.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, heavy stuff, but I think good sharing information, and I want to end the show on a positive note. So let's talk about how ridiculous my hair is. I mean, when can I get a haircut? What's going on back here?
Let it keep going. At this stage, just let it go.
Yeah, man, just let it.
I wish I could take. There's so much back here. There's not that much up here.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's why you get a bandana
back up there.
You got this silence thing going on, dude. Yeah. Party in the back.
Yeah. No, that's all I got. So let's just remind folks, next Thursday, June 18th at 6 p.m., we'll have Terrell Lloyd on. That's going to be a fascinating discussion. Please tune in for that. Link to that is right down below. You can go to photorec.tv/lounge. And of course, thanks David and Steve for hanging out with us. You can follow David, of course, on Instagram, David Carr _photo. And we've got Steve on there as well at Scurich. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you
for your frank and honest discussions. It's always appreciated.
Yeah, I love it. And thank you all in the chat. It's really great to read your comments. I really appreciate you sticking with us for an hour and a half. It's pretty awesome.
And do us a favor, go to Netflix and watch Space Force.
Oh, you've been. I think I've watched 2 episodes. I think it's quite fun.
Episode 2 is the best one so far that I've seen. I'm about 7 in, so I'm all right. But God, that's a funny show.
Very good. And I just wanted to pass that Carrie message on that somebody was posting albums that had an impact on them, the most impact on them. Third Day was one. For those watching who don't know, David Carr was the drummer for Third Day for many, many years.
24.
So, 24 years.
Yeah.
You started when you were 8? What?
I know. Yeah, 8. Well, 18. But yeah, and Carrie, just in the interest of honesty, so you couldn't tag me because I'm actually not on Facebook right now. I actually deactivated my account about a week ago because of the stuff Steven was talking about. I just needed a break. I needed a break from the temptation. And if I don't shut it down cold and hard like that, I won't have the discipline to not keep checking it. So I'll be back probably soon, but I just needed to pause, leave the party.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, chat room. As David said, see you all next week. Thanks so much for watching. See you again soon.
See ya.